how to land a job and get interviews and have people want to talk to you. I'm on the brink of getting either 1 or 2 offers for a job, which is really exciting because I've been unemployed for a long time. I got unemployed or laid off in March and towards the end of March, and now it's the end of June. And it's been a long journey. So I really want to share all of the things that I learned along the way that I think could really, really, really help people, because when I started applying all the things that I learned, it was night and day. Like, I saw a difference. I went from not hearing back and not getting interviews for 2 months, from getting interviews and interviewing actively, like 1 to 3 interviews every week, which is like insane, just from doing all the things that I'm about to say in this video. So I'm hoping that I get to help people who are also unemployed and struggling, because I know navigating that is really tough. And I figured out a formula that I think really works and applies to really anyone. So hopefully someone could get value out of this, because, I mean, this was a real game changer for me. So, yeah, I want to get into that. So a lot of the early beginnings, I think what I learned with trial and error is when you're looking for jobs, it's really overwhelming and you don't really often know where to start. For me, I had to make my resume from scratch because I had been employed for 6 years, and for 6 years I didn't need to look at a resume. I didn't need to worry about all of that. So I had to start brand new, and that was a lot. So when starting totally fresh and building my resume, it took me a long time. It took me like almost a month to even draft out my first draft. And doing that, I think what helped me was researching companies first that I was interested in and that I would want to work for, because it just made starting a lot more fun. I think when you start searching into companies you want to work for, roles you think would be fun and interesting, just helps you start that process in a less sucky way, because it just feels more exciting to like start off, and you get to see what's out there and just kind of do like a general sort of scope of what's in the market, what people are looking for, what kind of jobs are out there, and just kind of doing, I guess, a survey of what's out there in the job market, and what you would like, and making a dump list. I had on my Notion board just dumping jobs that I liked and companies that I wanted to work for, and what was interesting to me. Then I ended up just honing down into job titles that were most similar to what I did in my previous role. So I previously did event planning. So I would look into all the roles of people hiring for event planners, event coordinators, logistical people, operations, event technology, anything that I had experience in. I would look for roles that aligned with it. And what I did was I made a dump list on my Notion board of all the bulleted lists from all of those descriptions. So I copy and pasted a bunch of job descriptions from all of the jobs that I thought applied to my experience. And I put it all in a doc, so it was really long. And I went through each bullet point, and I used that as a foundation for then crafting my resume, because I honestly didn't even know where to start with making it. And using the description of jobs that people were looking for hires for helped me be productive in how best to format my resume, because I'm directly formatting it in a way where I'm touching on the bullet points that people are looking for. So I used the job description to then like reformat each bullet point to apply to what I did. Then separately, I had a document that had all of my experience that I could remember of everything that I did generally, and then slowly reading and researching, I would like just remember things that I've done and just write it down. And yeah, just starting out with just dumping and researching to get all of your ideas on paper and just dumping it really helps in the early beginning. A lot of it when the early beginnings too that really helped me was mindset shifting. A lot of what really helps ground you when you're unemployed and you're actively seeking work is making sure you're in a good mindset. So when you're starting out, really priming your mind, and kind of prepping yourself to see like, all right, like there are going to be tough weeks and there are going to be good weeks. And a lot of affirmations really helps, like having affirmations. A lot of shifting your headspace to remembering, if you have imposter syndrome, which is something that I had to work through, is recognizing, all right, like if I feel this sort of imposter syndrome, like where is this coming from? If I have 6 years of experience or 2 years or 3 years of experience, then, I know what I'm doing. I am a professional. Like, I'm not just out of college. And if you are, that's totally fine. But if you have experience, then you have it, and kind of leaning into that and kind of finding a balance between applying for jobs that realistically you can do and also vetting out like what you aren't qualified to do really helped me with imposter syndrome, because then I went into looking it into every bullet point being like, okay, like I can actually do all of these bullet points. So I don't feel like an imposter because these are all things that I could actually do. Versus if I'm looking at a role that I don't feel too confident about, then I'm like, I don't know if I could lead a team. I don't know if I can do all of this. Then you kind of go into it doubting yourself, which isn't too great. So I think at least starting out, make sure that as many of those job description bullet points you can actually feel really confident with doing and talking yourself up for. Really totally helps. Trying to be really positive also really helps, and honing that you deserve the job and you're not desperate. You have options and you have experience. And yeah, the job market is tough, but don't focus too much on that. Instead, focus on what you can bring to the table and focus on your strengths and why you would make a really great asset and a really great employee. And just focusing on that and not giving so much thought about all of the ways in which you can't get a job or it can't work out, or like why things aren't going to go your way. Like, I honestly don't allow myself to go there because it's just not a rabbit hole that's going to be productive and help you during this journey. So doing your best to hone that mindset, which will take some time if it's something that you're not totally used to, is going to take a while, but working on it every day really helps. So I think that's one of the first things I would really say before you get super right into it. Another thing is to understand that it's really going to take time and it's going to take a lot of drafts. Like, I drafted my resume a lot of time. And I think something that I ended up figuring out is that, like, I think an easy trap to fall into in the beginning is wanting to send out like 50 applications a day, right? And it's not really productive. And I know it kind of sucks and it's kind of annoying having to tailor every resume to a specific job description. But I'm someone who I could be pretty stubborn, not so much anymore. But in the beginning, I got very hyped up. I was like, I'm going to learn all this stuff. I'm going to learn Adobe InDesign. I'm going to make my resume look really fancy, use like really cool fonts, make it look really pretty aesthetically. And I'm just going to put everything into it, And you could get caught up in that and like trying to craft the perfect general resume, in the beginning. But I figured out over time that it's kind of the opposite. I think in the beginning, you want to tailor your resume to every single job description. And honestly, it might feel slow, but the best way and the way in which I did see the most results was doing 1 or 2 resumes, applications a day. Firstly, I had a 2-page resume and I was pretty stubborn about it because I put like a lot of stuff on it. So I then made my resume extremely simple. Literally, like, I built it just from a simple Word doc. I'm going to paste like a template that you could use like in the description that I use. And it was so simple. Like, it's nothing fancy. When you're applying to jobs, oftentimes they use an ATS system, which is pretty much AI. And what the AI does, and the reason why it's so important for you to tailor your resume to the specific job description, is because the AI is going to scan your resume for keywords that matches with the description before a human person even looks at it. So the reason why you don't want to make it fancy, you don't want to use Photoshop, you don't want to use InDesign, is because the system, like the AI, has a hard time pulling information when something's too fancy. So don't use columns. Like, I did a lot of YouTube research also, and like make it so simple where it's really easy for the AI system to just pull the information it needs. So like, the simpler the better. Format-wise, and making it 2 pages also makes it more complicated. So doing your best to kind of Get rid of any filler words, get rid of any jargon. Just make it as simple and straightforward as possible. Don't get caught up in making it sound really fancy. Like, people just want to know the information. Like, you could use simple words that a fifth grader would know that to express what you want to say about your role. And even using ChatGPT to help you phrase things was really helpful as a foundation. And then going in and editing it using your own words was super, super helpful for me. So with doing that, making it one page using Microsoft Word, and then pulling up at least like 5 job applications that you want to apply for the week, right? And then doing one a day, and every day spending those 3 hours to going through every single sentence in the job description and making sure that your application is touching on every word, every sentence, and it applies 90% or 80% to exactly what that job description is looking for. I mean, with the knowledge that you actually are qualified to do it. So like, firstly, make sure that you're qualified to do exactly what they're looking for. And once you feel like, yeah, I'm a perfect fit, I could do everything or most of the things that they're asking for, then knowing that, you can then go in and make sure that your resume touches on every single bullet point, literally going through every single bullet point and like adding that in your own words on what you did in your job that touches on that bullet point. And going down the skills section and writing down skills and software that they're looking for that you have experience in and putting it in your skills. Also really helps. If you notice there's something that you don't know too well, you could put it on there and just watch a YouTube video about it. Take a free 2-hour course about it. Like, if you don't know CSS or HTML, or if you don't know how to use Photoshop, right? Just take like a simple YouTube course, a simple free online course about Photoshop, about CSS, to get a general. LinkedIn Learning is awesome. Take a LinkedIn Learning free course and learn whatever skill that you need for your job that you don't know too well, so then you could put it on your resume and like you're not totally lying because you do have the general knowledge about it, is what I did. And then also putting where you graduated from in your major, if it applies. So I graduated with like a business administration marketing degree. So I put it on there because it was relevant to what I was looking for. And oftentimes companies kind of want to know if you have that background education-wise. Also, tailoring your resume with the job title is really important. So putting the title that you're applying for that specific job. So if like company ABC is looking for an event coordinator specifically, then you put event coordinator into the top of your resume and then change the name of the file to the name of the company file. And then right under, you'll put like a 1-sentence description, just like selling exactly like why you're qualified. So for me, I put 6 years of experience event planning for high-level executives, hybrid, virtually, and in person. Simple, straight to the point, touches on exactly what most of the job descriptions and most of the jobs that I'm applying for is looking for. They're looking for someone with years of experience in event planning with high-level people who have done hybrid, virtual, in-person events. Like, I touch on so many things, brief, on a high level in so many ways. Now, it took me a long time to make it 1 sentence though. Like, in the beginning, I had like a paragraph, and then slowly over time, I nipped and chipped and figured out how to put what I wanted to say briefly in 1 sentence or 2 sentences, whatever works, whatever you have space for. My resume is like 10 font, 11 font, Times New Roman, or Arial. Don't stray away from like Arial, Times New Roman, or Calibri, because those are the fonts that the ATS system and the AI knows how to read. If you do anything crazy like Helvetica, which I used because I was like, I'm going to be smart and use Helvetica because it's going to be psychologically more appealing and they're going to want to read my resume. But you don't want to do that. The key is to be simple with your resume so that the ATS AI system could easily pick up all of the information that it needs. I put my profile photo on my resume in the beginning, and I took it off because, again, it wasn't simple. It just made it more complicated, and I don't think any of the jobs were picking up the information because I was getting too fancy with it. So honestly, with applying for jobs, the simpler the better. Like, just put the information that they need so then when someone's scanning your resume, like, the things pop out to them and it's easy to find. And that kind of also goes into putting numbers and metrics. I use ChatGPT to help me with that. And also I was just asking around my coworkers and like seeing if people could help me with numbers to put on my resume. which really, 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 really helped a lot. Quality over quantity. Trust me, like, you will get more results if you prioritize quality over quantity. So like I said, sending one application a day will do wonders. I kid you not, there was a week, multiple weeks, where I applied one application a day. And I think it was a Thursday and a Friday. I sent one on Thursday, one on Friday. Monday and Tuesday of next week, both of those jobs actually got back to me with all of these edits and all of these changes that I told you about after applying all of these changes immediately. It was night and day. That, like, moving forward, I was just getting hits, getting interviews all the time. So I swear that will make a huge difference. Making a cover letter, I know it sucks. I know it's the worst. I hated cover letters. I was very much anti-cover letter because it was just like so tedious. It sucked. But I promise you, putting in that extra effort and that extra work really goes the extra mile. I use ChatGPT to help me come up with the framework of it. Mine is 2 paragraphs. My first paragraph focused on my professional skill set that kind of applied to my resume. And then the second paragraph, I found what worked for me was just adding more of like that personal touch, some of my personal interests, my personal attributes, kind of like my own personal values, and kind of tying it back into my professional life. I like to make sure that the first sentence is like an eye catcher. So what I did was I pretty much in my first sentence either wrote highlighting I think the big thing is kind of making sure that your biggest strengths are highlighted and it's the first thing people notice. So the first sentence of my first paragraph of my cover letter is pretty much stating one of my biggest strengths was having 6 years of experience in doing events, which I have 6 years of experience working at this company. In my second paragraph, I said, I'm hungry to learn, and which is like 2 of my core strengths. I'm just a good learner. I learn very quickly. I'm very technically savvy. I'm just quick to pick up on things. I'm very versatile. So kind of leaning into your strengths and honing your cover letter around that and using ChatGPT to give you the foundation, give you the framework, and then afterwards going in and adding your personal touch. So like it doesn't come across like it's made by ChatGPT, because ChatGPT has this like language system where like if you keep it the way it is, people could just tell that you used AI because AI has a certain way of talking, and you don't want people to think that you used AI to come up with your cover letter. Like you want to go in and add your personal touch to it. Also, starting out when you're drafting everything, it's also helpful to give ChatGPT the links of the description of the jobs that you're applying for and having them say, hey, can you help me come up with a cover letter? Could you help me come up with some bullet points or some keywords I can use using this job description? And then it'll just highlight and take out the key bullet points, and then it could help you hone down stuff like that, So kind of ChatGPT is great to help you kind of consolidate a lot of information into something more digestible and help you just have a foundation to work with so you're not starting from scratch. So use it with that mindset and then use all of that to build off, kind of like an assistant. Like you don't want to use what it gives you as the final product. You want to build off from it and add your own personal flavor to it, which is awesome. So yeah, making it one page, really, really going in, and in the beginning especially, taking those extra hours and tailoring every single bullet point to the exact description. Like every sentence of that job description, every paragraph, make sure that every single sentence you're taking pieces of it and adding it to your resume so it's literally tailored to the job. I promise it makes a difference. And doing all that, given the information that you're 90% qualified and you hit everything that the description is talking about, and you're like, yeah, this job is what I'm qualified for. Because if you're not qualified for the job, then, it's hard to spin it around, It's possible, but it's not what I have experience in. My experience is applying for jobs that I know I qualify for and making sure that I get an interview for a job that I know I should be getting an interview for. So this is what that's for. Because it sucks, because in the beginning, I would be getting rejected from companies and job positions that I knew I shouldn't be getting rejected for. So I'm like, I have all this experience. Like, there's no reason I shouldn't at least be getting one interview, you know? So if you're having that sort of experience, chances are it's like not you, it's the way your resume is crafted. It's probably crafted in a way where the AI isn't picking it up, and like the people aren't seeing the information clearly enough to really see that you actually are qualified for the role. So you want to make it as simple as possible. And then also, after you do all this, over time you find like starting out, when you're tailoring your resume to each specific job description, it's very tedious, like I said. But over time, after you apply to maybe like, I don't know, 25 jobs or something, you find eventually you keep editing and tailoring. You eventually come and find that you end up with a general resume that works for most job descriptions. So what I found after like maybe a few weeks of applying and tailoring each of my resumes and cover letters, I ended up with a general resume that I could actually send out and not have to edit. All I had to edit was adding the position title in the resume and then adding the name of the company in the name of the file. I could leave everything else alone, because over time you actually start hitting all of the points that all of the job descriptions are. So if you're applying for an event planning position in multiple companies, pretty much they're asking for the same things, you know, but in different ways. So the more you keep tailoring it to specific jobs, the more you actually end up finding the right things to say that apply to everything. So then these last couple of weeks, I found myself with a general resume that I could send out without really trying. If I wasn't in love with the job, right, then I could have a day where I just use a general resume and just send it out to a few jobs, just to have it out there, you know, and then starting it that way. You don't want to do the opposite. Like, you don't want to start with a general one and then just send it out randomly. You want to start with tailoring it, so then you could kind of, you know, play around with words and language, and over time feel out what you could keep for everything. Because over time you start noticing patterns, and like over time multiple job descriptions, like they say the same thing. They're all asking for the same thing and they ask for it in different ways. I mentioned this briefly before, but also utilizing, if you're unemployed, chances are you qualify for unemployment. And if you qualify for unemployment, chances are you also qualify for free courses on Coursera. And also, if you have a library card, check your state. If you're in New York City, you qualify for LinkedIn Learning. If you have a New York library card, you have to do like some digging, but you do get free LinkedIn Learning courses. And for me, in my case with event planning, there's not a lot of like hard skills that would make a huge difference that I could be taking. But if you're doing something like coding, for example, or you're applying for data analysis or I don't know, something more technical, then, and you're like, oh man, I don't know how to use Figma, I don't know how to use Canva, I don't know how to use Photoshop, and the job that you're applying for, that's one of the qualifications, don't fret. You could put it on your resume. Just take a couple of hours and go on Coursera, go on LinkedIn Learning, go on YouTube, and just take a crash course of how to use that specific program, you know? And then once you get like a general idea, I think I already mentioned this, then you could say you learned it, and you could say that you have general knowledge and you're not actually lying, you know? Yeah, so it's kind of finding where the gaps are that are not making you competitive enough and filling in those gaps. So I took a course in graphic design just because. I took a Figma course. I did some brief brushing of CSS. And like I said, I'm event planning, so there's not much else. But you could do data analysis. You could do Microsoft 365. You could brush up your Excel skills. Like all of these courses you take, you could actually put those certifications on your resume, and a lot of them are only a few hours. Some of them only take like a couple days, a few weeks. It doesn't have to be like a month. Some are, but whatever you could do that could give you that competitive edge, so that you could put that keyword on your resume, and it's impressive. Like I had a resume last week, and she said, like, your resume is really impressive, and we were in the final stages of the interview, and we wanted to squeeze you right in because like you have everything and more that we were looking for. Like, you have experience with this specific printer, you have experience with this specific program. Like, we were very impressed with your hard skills and your knowledge of all these softwares, all of these like tools. And that came from me taking the extra time to learn how to use InDesign, to learn how to use Figma, to learn how to use WordPress, to learn all of these little softwares and tech tools that would just add extra keywords. And it comes across like you're someone who's very versatile, that you're very agile, that they're able to kind of see that you're willing to learn and adapt and, yeah, just be a valuable asset to the company. And also using that when you're in an interview, saying that you're looking to grow, for longevity. That kind of goes into what I wanted to talk about later, which was when you land an interview, like what you want to say. So first, let me just make sure I touched on everything else. Perfect. All right. So I pretty much touched on everything you want to do when you're starting out. So crafting your resume, crafting your cover letter, making it as simple as possible, tailoring it, quality over quantity. You don't want to send out 50, you want to send out one a day. You want to really put out quality stuff and be smart about it. You don't have to get too personal, just say what they want to hear, you know what I mean? And like make sure like it literally matches up with the description, because that's how you're going to land your first interview, and all of that given that you actually qualify for the work that you're applying for. Because if you don't qualify for the work that you're applying for, you're going to have imposter syndrome, you're going to not feel confident in the interview, you're going to think like you're not up for the job, like your mind is just not going to be there and you're not going to feel confident going into it, and it's just not going to make sense. So yeah, given all of that and doing all your research and giving yourself time, because you're going to go through a lot of first drafts. Like I went through so many drafts and just editing and making mistakes. And don't be afraid to apply to the same company or the same job multiple times. Like one of the jobs that I'm pretty sure I'm about to get an offer. Fingers crossed. I had the 5th interview last week, and I'm pretty confident that they're going to give me an offer. But I applied to that company 6 times in the course of like a month and a half, and I just kept applying. Like I didn't care. I was like, all right, you're going to reject me, then I'm going to edit my resume and apply again. All right, cool. Reject me. I'm going to edit my resume and apply to a different role. And I just kept doing that. Like it's not bad. Like companies, like it shows persistence. It shows that you want to work for them. And like to be honest, like if you are applying with a different resume, it's showing that like if they do notice that you're editing, that you're trying something new, that you're trying to get picked up by the ATS system, because it's not like you're trying to trick them. Like you're trying to land an interview for a position you know you're qualified for. So there's no shame in that. So yeah, don't be scared to apply to the same role multiple times. Like don't do it like back to back, day after day. Like give it a few weeks, give it a couple weeks, and then apply again. That's what I did, and it worked for me. Then like, all right, so cool. So say you do all these steps. You make your resume 1 page, you tailor it to the specific job description, and I'm saying every sentence, look for the words, apply the words, tailor it perfectly. And you do that, you make your cover letter, you tailor, your cover letter could be more general, just replace a few words, you know, just make sure that it, you know, it reflects who you are, you know, as your person, like your strengths as a human, your values, and make sure that it aligns, because they want to know who you are as a person. If maybe you're applying for a role that's a little different, then kind of use your cover letter to explain why that is. So if you're an event planner applying for a role as an executive assistant, then in my cover letter I said, well, I have a lot of experience planning events, but I worked so much with C-level executives that gives me a lot of experience with working with founders and CEOs and helping them with what they need, because I help the founders of a company. So all of these skills that I learned are able to be leveraged into being an executive assistant, and this is why it makes sense. So kind of tying in your experience with whatever job you are applying for, if it is not totally aligned, is what your cover letter is for. Anyways, once you get all that done, you have a good cover letter, you're getting interviews because you're doing what I said, you're doing a job application a day, and you're going on LinkedIn and you're searching up recruiters and you're trying to message recruiters, and you're just putting your best foot forward. You're giving it 100%. You're doing quality over quantity, and you're being smart about it. You know, you're putting in those keywords. You know, it's good. After that, you're like, hey, I'm landing interviews. People are reaching back out to me. I'm getting an interview. What do I do? So here's what's going to happen. I've been having a lot of interviews. By now, I'm an interview expert, you know. In the beginning, I was really anxious. I've reached a point now in my interview journey where I think it's kind of fun. I'm not really anxious anymore, because I've said the same thing so many times that, honestly, like if you interview enough times, as someone who's deeply anxious when it comes to talking about interviews and stuff, you reach a point where you're just kind of like, you just know what you're going to say. And it's kind of like sales. Like you're just excited to talk to someone new, get to know a new person. And you reach a level where you're making sure that you just like the people you're talking to, which I'm going to get into later. But the thing, when you start interviewing, oftentimes nowadays, this is the process. You're going to talk to a recruiter. Now the recruiter, all the recruiter cares about is that you match the job description. They're not really there to answer specific questions. They don't really care about anything else. All they care about is that they like you as a human and that you hit all of the bullet points that the job description is talking about, because they know that you can now talk to the next people, part of the team. That being said, here's the mindset you want to go into that with. It's low pressure. It's good. The recruiter, you don't got to worry too much about. You just got to impress them enough to push you through. So when you're prepping for an interview with a recruiter, it's either going to be on the phone or through Zoom virtually. And a big thing with the interview process, like I said, is you want to know how to talk to each person throughout the interview process. And nowadays, the job market is competitive, and it's going to be like maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 interviews. It's exhausting, I know, but it's what it is. You're going to want to meet different people, part of the team. They want to make sure you're a good fit. You want to make sure you're a good fit for the company. And like I said, the recruiter only wants to know that you're hitting all the points and you're a likable person. So go into that interview with a lot of positivity, a lot of energy. Feel excited. They want to know that you want to work for them, that you're excited, that you're ambitious, that you want to grow, you want to learn. Don't talk about money. We don't got to worry about that. Oftentimes, either it's in the job description, they'll tell you upfront what they're paying. If there's benefits, the recruiter will be very transparent and tell you. If they ask you in the end, which sometimes they do, like, are you comfortable? Like, what's your compensation? Like, what are you looking to make? My go-to answer is to ask them to reiterate, all right, what's your budget for compensation? They tell you, and then you say, okay, that works. And if they ask you to give you a number, just give them a range between it. So if they give you like, oh, it's between 70,000 to 100,000, does that work for you? You say, yeah, that works. And if they ask, okay, well, what number are you looking for? Say, I don't know, 70 to 80,000 would be great. Giving them a range. You don't want to go too high. You want to read kind of in the middle, and say that's perfect. So then the mindset with the recruiter, you want to just make sure you hit all the points on the description. So what I did when I'm prepping for an interview with a recruiter, if it's on the phone, perfect. You don't got to worry about how you're looking, what you're doing. It's more relaxed. So prep a Word document. And in the Word document, what you're going to do is you're going to copy and paste the job description into a Word document. And you're going to go in and you're going to edit all of the bullet points to match so it aligns with your experience. So if one of the bullet points says, we're looking for someone who knows how to use feedback to improve events for the future. You're going to copy and paste that. And in one of your talking points of you talking about, this is the experience that I have, the bullet point for your notes is going to say, I have experience sending out feedback forms and using that information to figure out ways to improve our events. You know what I mean? So you're going to take that and flip it to match your experience. So the way I have my Word doc notes for every interview is I have the title of the company, and then I have a description of a general, like a few sentences of just describing like my experience. Because one of the first questions the recruiter is going to ask you is, tell me about yourself. I have my resume in front of you, but I would love to learn more about your experience. Tell me about your experience. And then what I say is, my name is Delia. I have 6 years of experience working at ABC company and working with this, and like just like an elevator pitch of your experience. As 2 sentences, I say that. Then I say, now I'm happy to touch on briefly at a high level of all of my experience and what I've done at my previous role. And then you can feel free to let me know in what areas you want me to dive in a little further, and I'm happy to talk about that a little bit more. Just because you don't want to get too specific too soon, you want to give them a high-level overview of everything you've done, knowing that everything you've done that you're saying are things that you're saying that you copy and pasted from the description. So you're just not saying random things that doesn't apply. You're saying things directly from the description that they're looking for that you've done, So if you have experience making PowerPoint slides, If you've done that and like you're really good at it, but there's no, like, in the job description, there's nothing that says we're looking for someone who makes slide deck presentations, don't include that as part of what you've done, because they don't care, you know? I mean, I'm sure they care, but the recruiter doesn't really care right now. She just wants to make sure that you are what they're looking for, right? So make a bulleted list of everything you've done that completely correlates with the job description. So then when the recruiter says, oh my gosh, you're so great to meet you, please tell me about yourself, you can say, hi, my name is this is my experience, I've done this for this many years. What brings me here today is I'm really excited to grow with a new team. I really just want to use all of my past experience and bring this over to a new team, and I'm really excited to get to talk more about the role. I feel like the description really perfectly aligns with my previous experience, and I'm happy to start talking about everything that I've done in my past role. And like I said before, feel free to let me know where you want me to dive in a little further and just talk more about, and I'm happy to do that. Something like that, you know, so that you know that you'll talk about everything at a high level, and then they're gonna come and ask you like, okay, well, can you talk a bit more about what you did on site when you were at an event? Can you tell me a little bit more about how you worked with your team, how you whatever, you know, and they'll tell you where they want to navigate that conversation. But when you're talking about yourself, you just want to lay everything out there so then the recruiter can tell you where she wants to focus on. And that's something that you'll end up noticing. So usually with a recruiter, you go into your experience on a high level. She tells you where she kind of wants to go in, dive in a little further. Oftentimes, she'll go in, tell you about the role. This is what we're looking for. You're prepared because you read the job description, so you know exactly what, you know, she's going to say that they're looking for. And then your answer is going to respond to that using examples from your previous job experience. So a lot of what I also had in my notes is right under those bullet points. I have examples of, and you learn this over time. In the beginning, you won't really know because you're kind of learning the type of questions that they're going to ask you. So you kind of have to figure out, the more you interview, what sort of examples are going to be your go-to examples for every interview, which you kind of learn over time the more you talk to recruiters. So it's okay if in the beginning you don't really know. I would say in the beginning, whatever your highlights, whatever your biggest, proudest achievements were at your job, the biggest challenges that you faced, write them down just as an example. So that if there was a time that something went really wrong, but then you found a solution to it. If there was a time where a client really gave you a pat on the back for something, if there was a time that you really brought people together, a time that you really shined, like that's a highlight that you want to shine, that you want to bring up, you know, as an example. If they ever ask you like, give me an example of when you did this, of when you showed this, of when you took initiative. Give me a strength of yours, give me a weakness. I haven't really gotten the strength question, but you should always bring it up anyways. Find a way to bring up your strength. So, and find a way in the conversation at every level of the interview process to bring up your strengths. So just always figure out a way to intertwine that and write it in your notes, like your strengths. Like, I'm agile, I'm adaptable, I'm versatile, I'm a fast learner, I'm tech savvy. I like all of the things that make you stand out professionally, write it down. I'm great at connecting with people, you know, anything like that. Write it down so you have it on your notes to remember and look back at. Write down your weaknesses that you're working on. So my weakness, if they ask you that, which I do get that sometimes, I got it once. And I would say, well, my weakness is, you know, I've had to learn how to be more assertive. Don't say my weakness is. You always want to flip it. Say, over time, I've learned to be more assertive. Over time, I've learned how to better expect the unexpected. And then give an example of how you've been improving on that weakness, you know? I've learned how to, like I said, plan for the unexpected. I've learned how to communicate more effectively. Like, whatever your weakness is, figure out a way that you could flip it when they do ask you that question, because that probably is going to come up. So always have a document right next to, if it's a Zoom, split your screen. On one side, have your Word document that you could refer back to with all of the examples of your successes that you could give if they ask you it, and then all of your strengths, all of your weaknesses. And then also have questions that you could fall back on. You always want to ask questions. Always want to ask questions. Most of the time, you want to ask questions on the fly because you want the interview to feel natural and human. You don't want it to feel robotic, but you do want to have 2 to 3 questions to always fall back on in case you can't think of something in the moment, or in case you just have, like, you just need something, you know, and like you can't think of something and you just don't have an idea. So there's a lot of questions you could use. My go-to questions to fall back on when I don't know what to ask is, what's your well, this isn't for the recruiter. For the recruiter, you don't really have to worry about questions, if I'm being honest. For the recruiter, the biggest question you could kind of fall back on to ask is, what's a big pain point? This is a really good one. I would say for a recruiter, always ask, what is the biggest pain point that the team is looking for this candidate to fill for the role? And they will literally tell you what they're looking for. And that's perfect, because then you could talk about all the ways that you're going to fulfill all of those pain points and all of those challenges, which they love. And that's actually how I got pushed to the final round of a position that they were going to immediately fill, and they pushed me in there because she was just impressed that I just sold myself so well. And I'm not a salesperson, like that was one of my weaknesses, but you kind of learn how to sell yourself through asking them what they need. And it's very easy to sell yourself when you're asking them what they need, and then your answer is all the ways that you will fulfill their need. You know what I mean? And that just makes it so much easier to sell yourself that way. So for a recruiter, that's a perfect question to fall back on if you don't know what to ask. And then obviously, like, ask other questions that just come up naturally. So like if she says something and like you're wondering like, what would that look like? Then ask, I'm curious, what would that look like? I'm curious what sort of attendees are going to attend. I'm curious how much traveling. I'm curious, whatever you're curious about, just naturally ask it, because it just makes it more human. Yeah, it's great. And just connect with the recruiter. I learned this from my previous job, the sales team. They would always go on LinkedIn and search the person they're going to be on a call with. So I like to search the person I'm about to be on a call with, just so I have a visual and I know visually what the person looks like, and I just feel like it's a human. I just feel more connected to it. I try to look down to see if there's any interest that I would resonate with, just to get an idea of the person I'm talking to. Just psychologically, it's good to kind of see who you're about to talk to over Zoom or on the phone prior to it, so you just feel more prepared. And then while you're talking to them, start off with some small talk. I like small talk because it makes me less nervous. So I'm someone who I will talk about the weather. They'll be like, hey, how are you? I'm like, hi, my name is Daly. I'm doing great. How's your week going? I'll be the first one to say it. I mean, I think it's better to be the first one to say it because it just shows that you're personable and you're engaging. I'll ask, how's your week going? My week's going great. How's your week going? It's going amazing. The weather's clearing up. I'm really happy. So it's been a great week. It's almost Friday. And then, I don't know, something like that, just to lighten up the mood, break the ice, and then it just feels good for both of you guys, and then you could kind of get into whatever you're going to get into. But I say always start with some small talk to just kind of make everyone feel comfortable and make you just feel more likable. So yeah, do that with the recruiter. Try to bring things in. I had a conversation last week where she said, finance isn't the most interesting thing in the world. I get that. I'm not a big finance nerd, but, some of the things are interesting, and, some of the events are really interesting. So we're really looking for someone who's willing to, just dive in and who wants to just learn and do that. And you know what I said? In my head, I said, perfect. And then, so what I responded was, like you said, I know I'm not the biggest finance nerd either. I'm connecting. We're connecting. You want to connect. But like you said, I love to learn. I love to be in a room full of people where there's just new conversations and people are just talking. It's just a great environment to be in. So you always want to feel like you're connecting with the person you're interviewing with. So if they say something, try to bring something back to what they said. It's kind of psychological. So be like you said, so and so and so. What you said really resonated with me. This that you said, it aligns perfectly with what I'm looking for. I'm very this. Just always try to show that you're listening and that you're engaged and that you're connecting, because you just want to connect to the person, because it just makes you stand out that much more. So that's really how you want to go into that interview with the recruiter, especially because she's the frontliner, and you want to get through the frontliner. When you finish the interview with the recruiter, depending how it goes, if it goes really well, she'll tell you up front. I've had a lot of people in an interview, the recruiter or at different levels say, you know what, this was great. I'm going to push you to so-and-so to talk to them. And yeah, we're going to schedule some time with you next week or whatever to get things to the next level. If that happens, you're on the money. You don't got to send a thank you letter. You don't got to do anything. She just told you you made it to the next round. And that's perfect. You did everything right. Pat yourself on the back. Get a drink. Get a margarita. You're awesome. You deserve a burger. I don't know. Take yourself out to dinner. You're doing great. Now, if she doesn't say that, you'll find some people who interview are a lot more comfortable, or like they get kind of weird sometimes. They don't want to give you, like, I don't want to, say that you're getting in. Like, I don't want to leave it a mystery, because it's kind of like, I don't know, some people are like that. So if you come across someone who's like, all right, well, if we push you to the next round, you'll be hearing back, or like, I'll let you know. Like, if like they don't really give you a clear answer of like that you're going to the next step, and they tell you these are the next steps, then send a thank you letter. And in the thank you letter, you're obviously going to thank them, but you're also going to sell yourself. So you're going to think about, again, all the ways that you could reiterate why you're a great fit for the role. And you're going to write maybe like 4 sentences about why you're excited, why you think you're a great candidate, and yeah, all that. And all the ways that you're just awesome and you should be memorable. And if you have a recommendation letter, which I did, attach that recommendation letter, baby. Be like, hey, I'm just sending this over. Feel free to reach out to this person. Feel free to reach out to, if you don't have a recommendation letter, feel free to include someone that they could call who speaks on your experiences, just to reiterate how strong of a candidate you are. Whatever you think will help you, that you didn't touch on in an interview, say it in the thank you letter. And if you need help with that, ask ChatGPT to help you phrase it. Ask a friend. I like to ask my friends because it's nice for them to see as an objective person, and they could help me objectively write an email sometimes if I need help, to help me sell myself, which is really awesome because sometimes like it's hard for you to see clearly because you're the one in it. So whatever you got to do, send a thank you letter. Send it off the day after. You don't want to feel too desperate. I like to send it the morning after, so then I'm at the top of their inbox and I'm at top of mind. Cool. Now, say you hear back and you get the second interview, which is awesome, and you're doing great. So you get the second interview. Oftentimes, the second interview, you're meeting with the person that you're going to be working with directly or directly under. So when you're meeting with this person, you got to prepare yourself a little bit better, right? With this interview, you're going into the mindset of you want to make sure that this person likes you as a human, because this is someone who's going to work with you every day. This is someone you're going to work with every day. So you want to go into the second interview with the mindset that this is someone that I'm working with. That's what the mindset you want to go to. Like, I am working with this person. So don't act robotic. I know you could get anxious, so it could be easy to fall into that. So try to like talk to this person as if you're actually working with them, and like you really like they're trying. The person interviewing you in the second interview is trying to envision working with you, so give them the vision, paint them the picture. That's kind of how you want to go into that one. So prepare questions to fall back on that's going to ask you what it would feel like to work with this person. So if it's someone you're going to be working under, ask them as a fallback question, what's your management style? How do you prefer to communicate? How does the team like to communicate? How would you describe a day-to-day? How would you describe a day-to-day on a busy week? I don't know. As a fallback, just like questions you could use to fall back on. Always research the company at least a little bit so you have an idea of what they do. If there's any questions that you're like genuinely curious about, that's awesome. Ask the person that you'll actually be working with, because they'll know. Ask them anything you need to ask them to give yourself a good idea of what working there would actually be like, because you should know, because you would be working there. So these are questions that they want to hear. Like they want you to ask questions that show that you're thinking about what it would be like to work there. Because something that I had to remind myself is like, this is a two-way street. Not only are they looking to see if I'm a good fit for them, I'm looking to see if I'm a good fit for the company, or like if the company is a good fit for me. Because if I don't like the people that I'm meeting, I'm not gonna like working there. And I had to learn that over time. Like, If I don't like how I felt, if I don't like the vibe the recruiter gave me, if I don't like the vibe the second, like, if I don't like the vibe of the company, then, I mean, obviously this is like a privilege. Like, if you're privileged enough financially to care about this sort of thing, I know some people just don't have the privilege to like think about that. But if that's something that's important to you, because for me, it's important for me to like enjoy where I'm going to be at as much as the financial stuff. So like, I take that into consideration. So I'm like, all right, like I want to know what it's going to be like to work with you, because I want to enjoy working with this new company, because this is a company that I obviously want to grow with. So you want to know who you're going to be dealing with. So ask them questions that you're genuinely curious about, and have a few fallback questions on. Again, make sure that you're listening and like you're asking questions as they come up within the conversation, because yes, it's an interview, but you also kind of want to find a balance of making sure it also feels like a conversation. Like try to relate to the person. Be like, how's your week going? But I think in one interview, like I noticed that she gave me the vibe that she was from the city. So I was like, or do you live in the city? Because they told me that they had a commute to the office. So I was like, out of curiosity, like, do you live in the city? She told me, yeah, like I actually grew up in Manhattan. And I was like, oh wow, I live in the Bronx. I grew up in the Bronx. I'm a New York City native. And she's like, yeah. And then I was like, yeah, I went to high school in Manhattan. I went to college in upstate New York, and we had a little bit of that connection. So you want to find something to connect with. A good fallback question also, if you don't know what else to ask them, I would love to learn about your journey working with this company. Like, what brought you with them? How has your time been here? I would love to learn more about your experience working with the team. They'll go through their experience working there, which is perfect because they're going to bring up personal things that you could then find ways to connect with. So then my previous interview, he actually just spoke on his how he worked with them on his own. I didn't have to ask. And one of the things he brought up was that before he worked there, he was pursuing acting. In my head, I said, perfect. I'm an artist. I love creativity. We're going to connect. So when he finished his whole spiel, I said, that's crazy. I totally get it. I totally get what you're saying. I have a very artistic spirit. I'm very creative by nature. I love to paint. I love to DJ sometimes. And then he said, that's awesome because, theater, DJing, they connect. And he was just connecting them. And then we connected, we bonded, which is awesome because you want to bond with the human, because people are going to go with their gut and their intuition. If you hit all the marks on your resume, the thing is, the job market is so competitive is that like there could be 3 people and everyone hits the mark, like everyone meets the job description. So you have to do something that makes you stand out. And oftentimes that thing is just making a strong impression as a person and just connecting with someone. So they really like you and they're like, all right, like even if maybe we pick the other person, we really want to work with her. So maybe they'll find a different role for you. And like, they'll be like, hey, this actually happened with the company that I had the 5th interview with. The reason I had the 5th interview with the company is because I think I was overqualified for the job I had initially applied for. But I made such a strong impression on each of those people by connecting with them and telling them all the things they wanted to hear. That was also true. Like, I'm ambitious. I want a team that I can grow with. And longevity is important to me. I'm hungry to learn. I'm very technically savvy. I really care about the work that I put out. I'm going to put out work that I can stand by. All the things that as a professional, someone wants to hear when they're hiring someone. And you say it authentically not because you're faking it, because you mean it. And a lot of it is kind of like I said, finding what you're strong in, believing it, and integrating it into your conversation so that when you're saying it, it's genuine, authentic, and you make a big impression. And you feel comfortable and confident saying it because it's true. So find whatever that is for you and just use that to connect with these people on a human level. And again, you're going to feel really anxious in the beginning. So it's going to take some time. And I know for me, like doing it over and over again helped me know what I was going to say. And also meditating helps calm my nervous system before an interview. And just reminding myself, like, these are people and they want to know if I'm a good fit. And I also want to know if they're a good fit. So it's kind of like a two-way street. You know what I mean? So kind of going into it that way. But yeah, The second interview, you're going to meet with the person you're going to be working with directly. So just make sure that you're listening. Make sure that you're really just like responding to what you're listening to. I know something that happens to me a lot is sometimes when I'm answering, I forget the question that was initially asked to me. And it's happened to me a few times. And it's kind of scary because then you start talking and then you're like, oh fuck, like I forgot what I was even answering. So it's easy to just keep rambling. But what I find is it's better when you notice that you're answering a question and you're like, oh man, I forgot what I was answering. It's better to just end it and then say, does that answer your question? And they'll tell you. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. Don't feel nervous. If you feel like you didn't answer a question, like you'll find a way to, it's fine, you know? Like it's better to just stop than to ramble and say things that just don't really make sense. I learned that over time. Just don't ramble. It's fine if you forget a question. Ask them if you answered it. They'll tell you if not, and then just move on. So if that's what, do that if you forget what they asked in a question. And just make sure you're listening and you're just like responding to what they're saying. You're asking a lot of questions. You're making sure it's a conversation. You want to make sure that you guys go overtime. A lot of my best interviews was 30 minutes that ended up going over to 45 minutes or even an hour because we were just talking about the role, talking about my experience, talking about all the ways that what they were talking about aligned with what my experience was, and me just us going back to back, jumping back and forth, you know? And like I said, in the beginning, it helps having a document full of notes of everything you want to talk about. And don't feel like you have to talk about everything at the same time. Just have it there so that when you feel lost, you have something to look at. Because when you're on a Zoom call, it's okay. Don't read it word from word, but it's okay to look at it a few times while they're talking to just kind of get your bearings, you know? If you're on the phone, it's a little easier because they're not looking at your eyes. You could actually read word for word in a natural way, like no one's looking at you, so it's a little easier that way. But if it's on a Zoom call, just make sure you have your notes to refer back to. And it's super, super helpful. For the third interview, oftentimes you're going to be talking to the hiring manager, so the person above the person that you're working with or working under. And that person is kind of like the head honcho, and they just want to make sure that you're not like a crazy nutty person and that like they like you because you're going to be working in their, like, you know, in their team. So it's really just kind of pretty much the second interview, but again, and just kind of asking, I guess more high level, just kind of selling yourself as a professional. So I think the second interview is more like selling yourself on like, you could depend on me, you could rely on me as a team member, right? The third interview is more like, I'm a high functioning, very qualified professional that wants to grow. The third interview, they want to know that you're not going to quit. They want to know that you want to stay within the company and you want to grow within the company. So I would say with the third and fourth interview, make it your mindset to just tell them that this is a company you're really interested in and you're just a high functioning professional, and like, yeah, just sell yourself in that way where this is just like growth, because that's what a leader wants to hear. A leader wants to hear that they're hiring someone who's high functioning and wants to stay with the company and is just really interested in what they're doing. So if you don't know how to say that, ask GPT. Like I interviewed for a company that was an app for property management. I don't care about property management. And I was like, ChatGPT, how do I answer the question, why do you want to work for us if I don't care about property management? And they'll tell you a few, like, it'll help you formulate that answer in a way that makes sense, you know? You don't have to like be passionate about every job you're applying for, but just phrase it in a way that just makes sense, you know? My go-to is just saying that I just want to grow with a new team and I feel like I can really bring my experience to the table or something like that. Yeah, but after your second and third and fourth interview, again, send a thank you letter. Don't send a thank you letter if they made it obvious that they're going to push you to the next round. Only send a thank you letter if like you don't really know and like you feel like you want to sell yourself. So that's when and always send it 24 hours after. And just, again, reiterate your strengths, reiterate how excited you are to work with the team, how you feel like you can bring a lot of positivity and like you could bring all of your strengths and how excited you are, because they want to know that you just want to work for the company. And if you genuinely are really excited to work for the company, in the final round or in the third or fourth, say it. I think in the previous role, I actually really do want to work for this company. And I told the recruiter, I said, you know, I'm excited to hear back. this company is a top choice for me. And I told them, like, this company is a top choice. Like, I want to work for this company. And I think me saying that made them say, oh, hey, like, this girl is high functioning. She's awesome. She actually wants to work for us. Why would we waste a great candidate? Let's figure out to see if there's another place we could put her. And don't underestimate a rejection with an open door. So I got rejected from a job a couple weeks ago, and they loved me, and the reason they didn't hire me was because they hired internally. It had nothing to do with me. It was just uncontrollable circumstances. Yes, I got rejected, but I left the door open. I said, you know what? I'm going to stay in contact with you, the recruiter. If you build a cool vibe with the recruiter, stay in contact with the recruiter. Because honestly, it makes it easier for them because they already have someone that they liked. So they don't have to go through all these people, you know? Like, it makes it easier for the company if you stay in communication with them too, because they already vetted you, they liked you, they just found someone else, you know? So if you see a different role pop up in a few weeks, or you see something else, or just let them know, like, please keep my resume on file. Let me know. I'll keep an eye on the job board. If I apply to a different role, I'll reach out to you and let you know. And keep that relationship, because you want to do that because, again, you never know if, like, something new pops up and they reach out to you, or if you apply to another role and you reach out to them. So relationships is really important when you're applying to jobs because, again, while this job market is really competitive, it really just boils down to connecting on a human level, building a relationship, and just being memorable. And that's all that stuff has been working for me. And I would really recommend that. All right. And then that's pretty much, I think, generally what I want to say. Just be really engaged. I think over time, like, in the beginning, I really can't tell you, I was so anxious, like, so much anxiety. It was good anxiety. Like, it was more like nervousness. But all of the interviews where I did feel nervous, I ended up over preparing. So, like, I would prepare like an hour before. The first 30 minutes of the hour before, I would just kind of prepare my camera if it was a Zoom. So I would just, like, prep my Zoom camera, make sure I had a background if I didn't like my background, make sure I looked good, my camera was okay, the volume was good, the lighting was good, and just, like, prep the Zoom in advance. If it's Zoom, prep it in advance. If it's Google Meets, prep it in advance. Make sure your name is spelled correctly. So the first letter of your first name, the first letter of your last name is capitalized. Make sure your headshot is there. Like, make sure it just looks good, you know? Make sure, like, it just looks professional. Whether it's on Zoom, Google Meets, or Google Chat, make sure it just looks good. Cool. Then I did a little bit of research. I prepped my notes on my Google Doc. The last 30 minutes before the interview, I was just rehearsing what I wanted to say a little bit, but not too much because you don't want to get all caught up. So just prepare mentally, emotionally. Make sure you have a cup of water if you get dry mouth beforehand. Make sure you eat beforehand. Just make sure you're just, like, good, you know? And that's what I did. So I can't stress the importance of just prepping like an hour, 30 minutes before. It's really important. You're going to feel really anxious and nervous, but that's good because then you'll go into it feeling prepared, you know? And in the end of the interview, if you don't feel like you said something you really wanted to say before it ends. If they say, oh, do you have any more questions for me? Be like, I don't, but I just also want to reiterate that this is why whatever you didn't say you wanted to say, you could just add it in there. And say, I'm really excited to hear next steps. I hope you have a really great weekend. It was a pleasure meeting you. And always, like, lean in, smile, be very authentic, be very genuine. Just be there, you know. And if you did all this stuff and they don't choose you for the next round, it just wasn't a good fit, dude. I mean, there's been interviews I had where the recruiter, like, I just didn't feel it. Like, I was like, she didn't, I don't know, like, it was just off. I didn't really like it, and I was like, I don't feel like I don't feel like I'm gonna get the next interview, but I also just don't feel like I'll be a right fit for the team, and that's fine too. Like, you could kind of feel the vibe, and you kind of know how that is. I mean, you could do all the steps, but just know, like, you just feel the vibe. A lot of it is feeling the vibes. You want the vibes to be there, you know? Like, these last 2 jobs that I'm waiting for, the vibes were all there. Like, it was just vibe. Like, every interview process was just, like, a good vibe. But yeah, I swear, like, after you do everything I'm doing and you're getting interviews every single week, you get used to it, and, like, interviewing doesn't feel as scary anymore. I would say after, like, my 7th or 6th interview, I'm now, well, I don't even, I'm just giving numbers, but now I'm feeling a lot more comfortable. Like I said, now I just know in my head what I'm going to say. And like, I already kind of know what my go-to stories are. I know what my go-to strengths are. I just have a good idea of what they're going to ask me because they kind of all ask the same questions in different flavors. So you reach a point where like, I still have my notes to refer to because I still get kind of anxious or nervous. But I kind of more just treat it now as a conversation because I'm just like, all right, well, I just want to know if I'm going to like you guys and you guys are going to like me. And, you know, I have my bad weeks. I have my weeks where I'm really bummed out and I'm kind of like, damn, like I'm getting all these interviews and like it's taking forever. And then I have weeks where I'm really excited. I'm like, all right, well, I can't do anything about it. The only thing I could do is keep applying and keep pushing and keep going. So then you kind of have to like keep picking yourself back up and like remind yourself like, this is the name of the grind. Like you have to like have that positive mindset. Like you can't sink in this rabbit hole of like, it's really competitive. Like, I mean, it's fine if you're feeling sad. Like that's cool. Like take a break, you know, do what you got to do. If you got to be outside for a few days. Like you want to be there mentally. Like, yeah, just find a routine that works for you because it's going to be a roller coaster. Like it's not going to feel too great sometimes. And then sometimes you're going to feel really good, but have a lot of affirmations and like, you just know it's going to take a while. Like the first 2 months was just me figuring out what a resume that I felt really good. And it took me 2 months to like make a resume and a cover letter that I feel really confident about. Like it took a long time and like drafting and applying and mistakes and errors. And you're going to apply with jobs with maybe a resume that you're not proud of. And that's fine because then you're going to figure out like, oh, this resume that I just edited feels way better. And then give it a few more weeks, apply again with the new resume. That's totally fine. You're going to keep editing it. It's totally normal. It's part of the game. Just keep hustling. It's a lot of character development. But it's good because over time you learn how to sell yourself. I'm learning a lot of really great skills. I'm learning how to talk about myself. I'm learning how to just speak, you know, more eloquently, more professionally. I'm learning how to just talk about my experiences, and I'm just learning a lot about people. It's a good learning experience. I think something I wish I knew in the beginning was how, yeah, the quality over quantity thing, the importance of just not sending out a generic 50 applications a day, taking the time to do one a day. It feels really slow, but you'll see the results like instantly, like within 3 days, like you'll see the results tangibly. Like there's no denying that if you're qualified for a role and you know that you're qualified for it, there's no reason you should not be getting an interview. You know what I mean? So it's like if you're getting rejected, it's not you, it's the way your resume is formatted. So you just have to like make it really simple, make sure you're like really aligning the description with your experience. And then once you get the interview, it's really awesome. Just making sure that you're connecting. Because, I mean, they have your resume in front of you. You don't have to read your resume to the person. Like, they have it there. Like, they read it already. They kind of just want you to give an overview, you know? And then they'll tell you what they want more information about. So just give them a high-level overview of, like, everything you've done as it pertains to the description. And then leave out things that don't really matter. Obviously, include things that you think are just will make you shine. That's really awesome. But yeah, this is just tips from a girl who doesn't typically enjoy selling herself. I'm not a salesperson. I don't like sales. I've never been great at doing it. But this has forced me to be pretty good at it, and I think I'm doing a pretty good job. And it feels a lot less daunting when you kind of shift your mindset and you think of it as like, you know what? I am qualified. I know what I'm doing. I've been doing what I've been doing for a while now. And, you know, I want to know if I'm a good fit. I want to know if they're a good fit just as much as they want to know if I'm a good fit, because we should both be a good fit. And kind of like giving yourself a pep talk and doing what you got to do. Again, take whatever applies. I know not everyone is the same as me. But I do think a lot of the foundations of what I'm saying is very general. Make it one page. Make it very simple. Don't use a fancy font. Stick to Arial. Stick to Calibri, Times New Roman. Know how to use the bold. Don't go under 10 size font. Tailor the name of the resume and the cover letter to include the name of the company. Make sure you include the title of the role that you're applying for in the resume. Just make it really simple. And yeah, dude, I think it should be good. I think that's pretty much it. That's what I want to talk about. I hope this was helpful. I really just wanted to make a video that brought value, and I think, yeah, I feel really good about this, and I really hope this helps someone the way so many YouTube videos helped me. I just wanted to consolidate everything that I've learned, that I would love to share with the world, that just really made a difference. So also something that I really had to remind myself, and I still remind myself, is if I do all the stuff, I do all this and I get rejected, again, it wasn't me. Sometimes you're overqualified, you know? Sometimes you're a great person, but maybe it's just a blessing in disguise. Maybe you just wouldn't be a good fit for the role. I've been ghosted before by a recruiter, where the recruiter told me we're pushing you to the next round, and I scheduled time and they just never got back to me, you know? And I had a feeling, like, I wasn't worried about it because I knew it would, like, the vibe just wasn't the vibe that I was looking for. It was a very corporate setting, you know? Very corporate. Like, I would have to wear, like, corporate clothes. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. And I was like, well, I'm just going to do it just to see what happens. You know, like, it's just, I knew it wasn't going to be a good culture fit. And I think maybe they felt it, so they just ghosted me. And also, if you're getting ghosted, you don't want to work for a company that ghosts you. You don't want to work for a company that accidentally sends you an email denying you. You don't want to work for a company where the recruiter just acts like they don't care, you know? So if you have the privilege to care about that sort of thing, like, keep that into consideration too. Like, do you want to work for people that treat you this way? Do you want to work for someone that doesn't respond to you, you know? You want to work for a company where, you know, you feel like you're being treated correctly. Like, you feel like good about it. Like, you don't want to feel like you're desperate, because hopefully you're in a situation where obviously you want a job, but you have food on the table. You have a roof over your head. You know, you want to work somewhere you want to work in. You want to be in a better situation. So this was a really long video, but I want to leave you with that, and I hope it was helpful. I'm going to leave a template of the sort of resume style that I use in the description, and also the cover letter, just because I feel like it really was a game changer for me, and maybe it could give someone some ideas of what to use, because I promise you, simple is effective. You don't got to be fancy. You just got to be straight to the point. So this is Delia from the future, and I wanted to just bring up some points that I actually forgot to talk about in the video that I realized. Firstly, the importance that I forgot to touch on of updating your LinkedIn. Research all the best ways to optimize your LinkedIn profile. And then this kind of touches on hyperlinking your LinkedIn on your resume. So on your resume, if you make a link a hyperlink, then, like, even if you PDF it, people could click on it, and it makes it really easy to look you up. So remember to hyperlink your LinkedIn. But then when you're updating your LinkedIn profile, make sure to add a description, update your headline, add the thing that says open to more work. Try to get people to vote up your skills or add skills. Try to get past coworkers to write your recommendations on LinkedIn. Take LinkedIn Learning courses and put the LinkedIn Learning courses that you completed on your profile, and just do all your research to make your LinkedIn profile really strong and optimize it. Make sure you have a really nice headshot on there and just make it look really good, you know what I mean? LinkedIn is really important too. Don't overlook it. The next one is, when you're searching for jobs on LinkedIn, make sure to turn on LinkedIn alerts for all of the different sort of job titles you're searching for. That way, like, you'll get emails directly sent to you, like, every day, which could get overwhelming, but you could look at it like once a week, and it just gives you, like, updated lists of any new job postings, like, as soon as it's up, so you can apply early to a job that's posted. And it's just good to keep you in the know of new jobs that are coming up, because it kind of changes every week. And while you're looking for jobs on Indeed, LinkedIn, Google, ZipRecruiter, do your best to apply directly on the company website. Oftentimes recruiters, they will prioritize applications that are coming through the company website. So you would want to do that. Try not to apply through LinkedIn or through Indeed. Always do your best to apply directly on the company website. And if you can't, do LinkedIn. I want to stress the importance of just using ChatGPT to organize your dump list, and just using ChatGPT as a resource to help you know what action words to include on your resume, like what powerful words you could use, and just vocabulary. It's really good. It's a really good reference for that. Really always make sure that you double, triple, quadruple check your resume and your cover letter before you send it. Make sure the punctuation is good. Make sure that you're reading it out loud, because sometimes you don't catch something unless you read it out loud. Make sure you have someone else read it. Every time you send a resume or a cover letter, make sure you spell check a million times, and make sure you have like Google Docs or like document Word doc check the spelling for you. Like, don't overlook it. Like, it's easy to kind of get comfortable not doing it because you're like, there's no errors, but you never know. Like, sometimes you accidentally press a button or something happens, and a minor mistake like a spelling or a grammar thing could make a recruiter not want to pick your resume up. You know what I mean? So quadruple check your spell check. Super important. Also, formatting. Make sure your formatting looks good once you export both of them into a PDF. Also, this is pretty good, and it's small, but I think important. And at the bottom of your resume, one line, it doesn't have to be big, add some interests of yours. So whether it's art, DJing, hiking, running, sci-fi movies, nonfiction books, fiction books, fantasy books, anything that you think will be a good conversation starter. I met someone and they were like how their sibling put that she liked horror movies, and when she put horror movies, the person interviewing her was like, oh my god, you like movies? What kind of horror movies do you like? And it was like a really great way for her to connect with the interviewer. So don't underestimate the power of adding your interests on it. It makes you feel more human when someone's looking at your resume, and you never know if someone's going to connect to it. And you could always tailor it. Like, don't feel like you have to put every single thing you're interested in. I tailor my interest based on what I'm applying for. So I like crypto. So if I'm applying to a company that's in finance, tech, or crypto, I'll add in that one of my interests is gaming, crypto, I don't know, stocks, you know? So depending on what job you're applying for, try to tailor your interest to kind of relate to the industry, so it like adds value to that too, which is really special. Try to add your interest. I think it's worth doing. Also, another one, with your cover letter, I mentioned adding your values, and like things about you, you know? A part of like adding something personal about you in your cover letter is making sure that whatever that is sort of aligns with the values of the company. So if the company values like being ambitious, being a go-getter, being a dreamer, being a trailblazer, I don't know, like look up the company values for whatever job you're applying for and try to tie in your own personal values and mention how that aligns with the values of the company and how that's something that's really strong and that could really set you apart. So that's like, I think that's also like a really clever thing to include in your cover letter that can make you stand apart, that I've done a few times. Another thing is, if you're someone that you have a 2-page resume and you're struggling condensing it to 1 page, which I did in the beginning, I had a hard time condensing it. It's not that hard, honestly. Like, you find that when you go through a 2-page resume, you find that sometimes you're repeating a lot of the same things multiple times. So with making something 1 page, a lot of it has to do with removing filler content. So removing filler words, words you don't need, trying to condense 3 bullet points into 1 bullet point. And if you really work on condensing what you're saying and really only like just playing with the words to just say what you have to say directly, straightforwardly, you could do it. Like, you could condense it. You could use a semicolon. Like, play around with words to say what you want to say in a condensed way, which is possible if you put enough work to it. And again, like, try to use ChatGPT to help you, but try to not repeat things over again. Really use your space wisely. Make sure that every word on your resume really counts and you're using your space smart, and like you're not wasting space, that you're trying to really make the most out of the small page that you do have to really describe everything you want to describe. So it's possible. You could condense everything to one page. Just try to condense and remove filler words. That's really the biggest thing. Remove the words you don't need. I spoke a little bit about the ATS systems and the AI that a lot of companies use before a person even takes a look at your resume. I really suggest doing your own research, looking at YouTube videos, looking online, because it really does make a difference. Like looking into how to best optimize your resume so that it is picked up by ATS systems, so that it is picked up by the AI, and you're the best possible chance of getting your resume seen by a human pair of eyes. So definitely do your research, watch YouTube videos about ATS systems and how to optimize your resume with the keywords and the formatting that you need. Another thing is, I know I talked a lot about trying to figure out ways to make sure that your resume fully aligns with the job description. I also want to stress the importance of not lying, of being really honest, but also just being smart. Like, you don't want to lie on your resume. You want to be honest and you want to be authentic. And a lot of that has to do with just being smart and not lying, but trying to figure out how you can fulfill every part of the job description, you know? So never lie, always be honest, be authentic, and you know, it comes across. Like, people could feel it. Like, if you're kind of like trying to BS your way through an interview, like, it could be felt. Like, you really just want to put your most genuine self forward. And that comes from pulling out your strengths and believing what you have to offer. And if you feel like you're lacking in some area, figuring out a way that you can flip it around or fill in that gap with knowledge so that you feel better about that thing that you're lacking, you know? So don't lie, be honest, and try really hard to learn throughout the journey and like take courses, be online and research, and fill in whatever gaps you gotta fill to fulfill the job description that you want that job for. Another point is depending on the job, sometimes you meet multiple people within the same team. It's not always gonna be like recruiter, person you're working with, hiring manager. Sometimes you meet with different people. So like, just pay attention at each interview who you're talking to and what their job title is, because the person's job title and who they are is going to dictate how you talk to them. So if you're talking to a team member, you're going to be talking to them with a different mindset than if you're talking to a hiring manager or if you're talking with someone for marketing, you know? So just pay attention at the job title of the person you're talking to and kind of cater your language and your energy to that sort of vibe and energy. And doing that is really, really helpful. A thought experiment that really helps too with that is try thinking of it if you were in their shoes and if you were interviewing yourself. What would you want to hear? Like, what would make you want to hire someone, you know? And that really helps you format your answers and just format your presence in a way that would make you want to be hired if you were hiring yourself. And I think that's a really good thought experiment to do, because then you show up as the best version of yourself, because you're picturing like, all right, if I was interviewing a candidate for this position, who would I want to work for? Who would I want to hire? And that's really going to dictate how you show up in the interview. And I think that's really powerful. So try using that thought experiment. Thought experiments are really powerful. So if you could ever like try to put yourself in the shoes of the recruiter or the interviewer, that really, really helps. Another thing that's really kind of low-key and you wouldn't think about is your email etiquette. So I always email recruiters and people I'm interviewing the way I would email if I was at a job. So don't underestimate the power of communication and the way you communicate. It's kind of like the saying, like, dress for the job that you want. And even if you're like at the deli, like, treat everyone the way they should be treated, because you never know who's in a room. The same thing I would apply to an email. So when you're emailing people and you're applying to jobs, email people as if you are already in a job, you know? Email them professionally, show them that you're a great writer, show them that you're a professional. Like, just have very good email etiquette And that really stands out to people, because then someone's reading your email and they're like, okay, this is someone who can email. This is someone who I can trust to write emails. This is someone who I can see talking to clients, talking to our customers. You want to show them through action what you can do, not just tell them. And that also kind of touches on the interview. Like, you want to tell them all of your strengths, but you also want to come up with examples that show your strengths, which is also really good to have on that note document that you're writing. Like, whenever you have something that you really want to highlight, make sure to try to think of an example that can show it, with a very tangible example. Don't be afraid to go into details. They like details. Like, really walk them through an example of how you really actioned that strength or that thing that you're telling them that you're really good at, because that's what they want to hear. They want to paint the picture. The next thing is don't burn any bridges. So a lot of the times you might get rejected or you might not get a role. It's important to kind of don't burn your bridges. Like, a lot of the process I've learned with interviewing is you're forming relationships, you're talking to people, and recruiters oftentimes are really friendly and they're very engaged, and like sometimes they communicate really well with you. So you want to make sure that you're really treating every relationship important. So even if you get a rejection, say, hey, I really would love to stay in communication. If in the future you need someone to help within the team or a new role opens up, feel free to reach out. And I already talked about this a little bit, but it's really, really important to not burn any bridges, to really, treat it professionally, because there's a saying, I can't think of it, but the way you handle, I think, a rejection speaks volumes on your character. It's kind of like if you have an argument with someone, the way you handle that argument kind of shows your true colors, So the way you handle a rejection letter, the way you handle a recruiter telling you didn't get a job, shows a lot about your character. So if you handle that very beautifully, as in like, I totally get it, let me know if there's any feedback. If you want feedback, I think it's always really awesome to ask for feedback. And then also just tell them how you appreciate their time and you would love to stay in communication if a new role opens up. So really don't underestimate the importance of keeping relationships, because you really never know who could come back to you with a new role down the line. And you don't want to risk that opportunity because you felt really petty or sad or bummed, or you just weren't, just be smart. The last thing I'm going to say is bouncing back. Sometimes in an interview, you'll make a mistake. Sometimes I stumble, I stutter, I'll say a word, I'll jumble over my words, I forget where I'm going with a thought, I'll lose my train of thought. And I think what's really important that I learned over the years at my previous role is what's important is not the mistake that you made, but how you bounce back from it. Because people make mistakes, we're human. I think what an interviewer looks at is not you messing up, but how you come back from it. So don't dwell on the mistake. So if you lose your train of thought, don't be like, don't freeze. Just keep it rolling, keep it pushing, keep it hustling, move on to the next thought. Just forget about it, just come back out of it. Because at the end of the day, if you get a job and you're on the phone with a customer, a client, and you make a mistake on the phone, they don't want you to stumble. They don't want you to freeze. They want you to keep it going, because people are going to forget about the mistake if you just keep going confidently. So something that I learned is just how to bounce back and try to use that to your advantage in an interview, because people don't really remember the little things. People remember the way you make them feel and the energy that you brought to the table. So just keep that energy, that upbeat energy. If you make a mistake, it's more memorable, not the mistake that you made. It's just how you carried yourself when you did it. And I think that's really powerful. So, remember that, and don't fret. Like, people make mistakes all the time. Just remember that, just pick yourself back up in the moment and just keep it rolling. If it helps you, come up with a line that could help you, that you have it prepared in your mind of what you want to say if you do mess up, So something like that. So I think that's all the points that I wanted to touch on that I didn't get to touch on the video. So I'll bring it back to the past me to to close y'all out. I hope you have a wonderful day. And yeah, stay cool, stay fresh, stays wavy, and have a happy weekend.